Well, welcome everyone to Church 321. We are so glad that you are here with us this morning. My name is Sherry Howder, and it's just a privilege that you are all here today. Would you please stand, and we will sing some songs together. This is an opportunity for us to take our individual voices and to bring them together as one, as we declare what's the depths of our heart and the cry of our heart. And would you please pray with me? Jesus, thank you for this great opportunity we have to come together from all walks of life, from all of the thoughts, from all the feelings, from all of the events, from all the heartache and all of the joys, that we can come together as one before you. And God, no matter what we may think or understand of who you are, the truth is that you have declared that where two or three gather in my name, that you are here. And so, Jesus, we recognize that your presence is here and you have something for each and every one of us this morning. So, Jesus, be pleased with the words that are said and sung. Speak to our hearts, for we are listening. And we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Got above all the world in motion. Got above all my hopes and fears. I don't care what the world throws at me now. Gonna be alright. Hear the sound of generations making loud their freedom song. All in all, that the world would know your name. Gonna be alright, 'cause I know my God saved the day, and I know His word never fails, and I know my God made a way for me. Yeah, salvation is here. Got above all the world in motion. Got above all my hopes and fears. I don't care what the world throws at me now. Gonna be alright, 'cause I know my God saved the day, and I know His word never fails, and I know my God made a way for me. To be alright, 'cause I know my God saved the day, and I know His word never fails, and I know my God made a way for me. Yeah. Salvation is here. Salvation is here. Salvation is here, and He lives in me. Salvation is here. Salvation that died just to set me free. Salvation is here. Salvation is here, and He lives in me. Salvation is here. You are alive and you live in me. Oh, salvation is here. Salvation is here and He lives in me. Salvation is here. 'Cause you are alive and you live in me. Oh, 'cause I know my God saved the day, and I know His word never fails, and I know my God made a way for me. Yeah, to be alright, 'cause I know my God saved the day, and I know His word never fails, and I know my God made a way for me. Yeah. Oh, salvation is here. Salvation is here, and He lives in me. Salvation is here. 'Cause you are alive and you live in me. Oh. Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Oh, Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above. Humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. I'll never know how much it costs to see my sin upon that cross. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. Whoa.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I am surrounded by the arms of the Father. I am surrounded with songs of deliverance. We've been liberated from our bondage. We're the sons and the daughters. Let us sing our freedom. Oh, 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 You split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Yeah, you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing.
I am a child of God.
Yeah, I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. Yes, I am. I am a child of God. Full of faith. Yes, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Thank you all so much for joining with us in worship through our song. You can have a seat.
Nice job, JR. I don't know if you guys are waiting for him to get off stage. Give him a hand. Every week he does this. He doesn't do it for any admiration or applause, and yet you wear bright colors so everybody can see you. Hey, welcome to 321. My name is Greg, and let me say a special hello to all of you who are running the race this morning for the cure. I say that not jokingly. We were at the Sylvania Local Fest last night, downtown, J&G's Pizza, and then Upside Brewing. It was a great event downtown. I'm talking to Amy last night, who's like, I really want to be at church tomorrow morning, but I'm going to be running the race for the cure tomorrow, the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure. And I said, well, the great thing is you can watch us live. And she's like, I will be. So, Amy, watch out. No, I'm just kidding. To all of you who are watching online, welcome into our little corner of Sylvania. We're so glad that you're with us. We're so glad that all of you are here this morning. Hey, this is a historic Sunday because you're here on the last Sunday of 2 services in this building. Yes, this is a great thing. I say 2 services in this building because our hopes are, as you know, through our People Matter campaign, that we are going to build out and build a larger auditorium so that maybe at some point we can go back to 2 services. But for today and for the time that we are in here, we are moving on. We're adding another service in. And so what we've done over the last 2 weeks, and then including today, is we've been answering the question I think everybody may ask, or maybe you don't want to ask, you're afraid to ask, and that is simply why. You know, why create more space? And I understand that part of that why question comes because you like the small, intimate feeling that we have here. And many of you came out of larger churches. And you love how cozy and warm that it is here. And that's all well and good. But when we start to ask about a third service, that kind of freaks us out a little bit. Like, what's that going to mean? And how many more people are going to come in? And what does that mean for our kids? So we understand this because we as leaders have wrestled with the same question. So in the last 2 weeks, we've tried to answer why. Why add another service? Why put additional stress and strain on our team and our volunteers and have the band be here earlier and all those sorts of things? And we began 2 weeks ago in week 1 by simply saying that the gravitational pull of the church is always inward. The gravitational pull of how many churches? Every church has a gravitational pull to the inside because the gravitational pull of my life is always towards me. And don't look at me that way because your gravitational pull is always towards you. And when you get a bunch of us's together, the gravitational pull of all of us together is always towards the inside. But in week 1, Jesus stepped up and he told us 3 different stories that revealed to us the heart of the Father. And Jesus essentially said that even though the gravitational pull of the church is always inward, the gravitational pull of the Father's heart is always to the outside. The gravitational pull of God's heart this morning is to people who we would call outsiders because they're not inside the church yet. And so Jesus unpacked these 3 stories, and our big idea back in week 1 was simply this, in the first part of answering this question, why? In order to be a church that is for people who are far from God, we must feel what God feels for people who are far from him. It all starts there. It starts right here with every one of us before it ever gets there. In order for me to have a heart that is for people who are far from God, I have to connect with the Father in such a way that what he feels towards people on the outside is what I feel towards people who are disconnected relationally from their Father. And then last week in week 2, we looked at the very first church business meeting. It was so exciting. Where there was one agenda item. Luke chapter 15, you can go back and read it for yourself. In Luke chapter 15, the first church business meeting, one agenda item. Who gets in? Who's allowed to be part of the church? Because at this point in the first century, non-Jewish Gentiles, outsiders, were starting to become part of the church. They were embracing and following Jesus, and that freaked out the Jews who thought Jesus was just for them because he was the Jewish Messiah. So they had this one question. Who gets in? Who's allowed to be part of the church? Is it Jesus only, or is it Jesus and? Is it Jesus and the 600 plus other Jewish laws and commands? Is it Jesus and the dues, Jesus and the don'ts, Jesus and your behavior, or is it just Jesus only? And there's this large debate and this long discussion that goes on forever. At the end of it, James, the half-brother of Jesus, stands up and he makes this incredible statement that has been a mandate for the church and should be a mandate for us this morning in answering this question, why? James stands up and here's what he says. It is my judgment we should not make it difficult for people who are turning to God. In their case, it was Gentiles, but we can apply it to us today because we're all pretty much mutts here, right? That we should not make it difficult for people on the outside to come into the inside. And so we set sort of the course for our Sunday mornings that we've said we do not want to create roadblocks and obstacles and hindrances that would cause outsiders to still feel like outsiders when they come inside, right? We want to create a comfortable environment for people who are coming. And the big idea last week was simply this: we have got to keep it simple. Because honestly, I was talking with Larry Sprague last night when he was here. We have complicated this thing called Christianity. We have complicated this thing called the church. We have complicated Jesus. It is really relatively simple. We're going to walk you through the process this morning. Now, if you are here today for the first time, welcome. You just need to know today that today is not much of a message. It just isn't. It's not because I didn't put my time in and because I was at a party last night. That may have partly to do with it, but not really. Today is just going to be very, very different. You may walk out of here this morning and go, we weren't even in the Bible. You're right. Had you been here last week, we were in the Bible quite a bit, and we're not going to be in the Bible really at all this morning. I'm going to share with you some things about 321, the bigger picture of where we're going, that I think will help you. And if you're here and you're not a Christian, you wouldn't call yourself a church person or a follower of Jesus, today's really, really good for you because we know that people on the outside have all kinds of crazy ideas about what goes on in here. So today's going to help you kind of relax and understand where we're going, what our purpose is, and what the progress is that we're making in the direction that we want to go. And if you are here today and you're an insider, you would call yourself part of 321, this is even better for you today. Because by the end of the morning, I want you to understand the progression that we want to see us all take in making steps in following Jesus. So that's where we're headed this morning in our final week. And before I jump any further, let's pray. Father, I ask in these moments that you would simply give us ears to hear your message and eyes to see what it is that you want to show us. And that you give us hearts today that will embrace what you want to show us and what you want to say to us. That's the biggest challenge for us this morning. Because we all come in with, many of us come in this morning with our church backgrounds, and we bring all of that to bear in this new church background, in this new church environment. And God, you know how much as a leadership team, we have had to wrestle with not necessarily always falling to the defaults, because what you're doing is something you're doing in us that you eventually do through us. And so today we just want to give you, Holy Spirit, freedom to kind of speak and move and kind of cast a bigger picture for us. And for many of us, the next step that we need to take, not in just being part of the church, but far better than that, the next step we need to take in our pursuit of Jesus. And we pray all of these things in Jesus' name, amen. Question to start the morning, how many of you enjoy putting puzzles together? You are sick people. Come on, put your hands up high. Be proud of this. Yeah, a couple years ago at Christmas, my mom had this brilliant idea that during the downtime of all the family being together, she threw this giant puzzle out onto a table and said, go at it. Like after the presents are open, what do? You sit around, you watch football, and you eat. And she just thought there ought to be more than that, so she put this puzzle out on the table and said, hey, during the downtime, you guys can kind of sit around the table, and as you're working on the puzzle, you can talk. Forgetting that the love language in my family is not communication. It is I love you and it is physical, but after that, quality time, not really on our radar. So she threw this puzzle out. My wife is the only one who's laughing because this is her love language. She's had to be bilingual in my family. So she threw this puzzle out, and it was pointless because very few of us ever went down and worked on it except my son Nathan. Our middle son Nathan, from the time he's been little, has loved to put things together. Whether it's puzzles, whether it's tearing things apart and putting them back together. He is the master Lego creator. This kid, I still buy Legos, by the way. I just bought one a week ago. Now, for you guys, it was the Ferrari F1 car, so my man card will go back up there. But I gave it to Nathan to put together because I get frustrated with it, and Nathan's like, there you go, Dad. He's just incredible. So thankfully for my mom, Nathan's part of our family, and by the next morning, the whole puzzle will probably been put together by one person because he loves putting puzzles together. Put your hands up, puzzle people. What's the first thing you do when you put a puzzle together? Yeah, I know what you're saying. Corner pieces, borders, you look for the pieces, right, that are flat on the edge. I'm going to argue with you and say that's not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is you look at the picture on the front of the puzzle. Right? The very first thing you look like, what's this thing going to look like? If it's a giant kitty cat, I am probably not working on it. Right? But that's what we kind of look at the picture to know what the individual pieces are going to look like when they all come together. Well, today, I get to show you the big picture of 321, of what the little pieces look like that go into making up the progression of what we call a life of following Jesus. So, again, you can just kind of get your head and heart around this morning. I think it will get us all onto the same page as to where we're going to go. Okay? So, let me start by painting a picture for you that happens probably to all of us. Let me ask you another question. How many of you have invited somebody over to your home for dinner? Yeah, Paul and Jamie, get your hands up, because we were just at their house for dinner. Had a great time at your house, by the way. Yeah, we've all done this, right? Where you've bumped into somebody at church or you've bumped into somebody at work. Somebody moves in next door. You hit it off with them, and they're like, you need to come over for dinner. And so you head over for dinner. And the very first thing that happens is they show up at the door, and they ring the doorbell, or they knock on the door, and you come and answer the door. And in that moment, really, the most important thing for the whole evening happens. In that moment, at the door, as you greet them, the tone for the evening is set by how you greet them. This happened at Paul and Jamie's house. It was awesome. Came down, greeted us. The dogs were there to greet us. It was great. Paul asked me what beer I wanted to drink. Like, this man's already won my heart. This is great. You know this because you've had moments when you've arrived at people's houses and they've come down and gone, okay, hi, and you realize they just got home 5 minutes ago, right? They're rushed, they don't have things ready, and you're feeling like you showed up at the wrong time even though you're there at the right time. You've had moments where you've shown up and the husband's like, hello? Because the wife forgot to tell him that she'd invited people over. In that moment, it is communicated to you whether they're prepared for you or not, whether they're ready for you or not, or whether they are completely unready and unprepared for you to arrive, right? Have any of us had those kinds of experiences? Yeah, that tone is set. And Ted and Mindy, this has happened at your place too, so don't try and hide back here in their darkness, right? The minute we've walked into their home, the tone is set. So here's what I want you to think about. Sunday mornings at 321, make sure everybody hears this. Sunday mornings at 321 are our foyer experience. They are our entryway experience, right? It is step number one for most people, for the majority of people, step number one into this thing called 321 is Sunday mornings. So the primary thing we want to do on Sundays is to create an atmosphere and an environment where everyone, who? Everyone feels welcomed. We talked about this last week, that one of the hindrances people have in coming to God is a bad church experience. We prayed about that. JR and Tim and I, we were praying before this morning. We were praying, God, for people who are here for the first time, we want them to have a great experience this morning. We want them to know we are thrilled that you are here, that we were prepared for you. We've been getting all ready for you this week. Larry was in here last night cleaning, getting ready for you this morning. I was here rehearsing last night till 11:30. I know it doesn't, but I'd had a couple beers at that point. But anyways, some of you don't even know how to deal with that this morning. We have been getting ready for you all week. We've been waiting for this moment. Because we want everybody, especially outsiders who are taking their first foray back into the church. Did you like that? Foyer? I just grabbed that from somewhere. They're taking their first steps back into a church experience. And for some of them, it's been a bad pastor, some of their church experiences. We want everybody to be welcomed. So part of that welcoming atmosphere is why we have a cafe. It is one of the primary reasons we have a cafe. For people to come in and to be in an unfamiliar environment and see something that is somewhat familiar to them, and then get a coffee and get a donut and make some connections. It's why we do not take up an offering. Because I feel awkward when I go to other churches, and I'm a pastor. So how much awkward it is for that person who's coming in expecting that we're going to ask for their money. It's why there's no dress code. Because Sherry and I have had a close friend of ours that we've known for years at Cedar Creek tell us, I'd love to come out to your church, but it's in Sylvania. I don't think I could ever dress myself up enough. Like, dude, this is it. Like, there's no dress code. It is why we don't, rarely, there are a few occasions we've done communion on a Sunday morning, but we leave that for our worship experience because we don't want outsiders to feel like there's a light on them going, you're an outsider. We want to do everything possible when it comes to the message, creating language and verbiage that everybody understands. That we're not talking about the propitiation of Christ's death by the sacrificial atonement of his, you know what I mean? We want everybody when they walk in here to feel welcome. That's the first word I want you to keep in mind today. When it relates to Sunday morning, next week we're going to 3 services. We want everybody to feel welcomed. You are welcome here because I think the average outsider does not feel they would be welcomed in the church. I think they think that there are expectations they're not going to be able to meet. There's clothes they're not going to have to wear or be able to wear that they don't have to wear. They're not going to know all the songs. They won't understand things. I think so much of what keeps people on the outside is the fear of what happens here in the inside. So for some of you who have made those first steps in here, thank you. You get a badge of courage this morning for doing what we church people think is just common. But if you want a different experience, church people, this is really good for you. Go to another church sometime. Because sometimes we get so used to the environment we're in, we forget until we go someplace else what it's like to be a guest. So we want Sunday mornings to be a place everybody is welcome. All right, think through the progression with me. We've been in the foyer. We've met Paul and Jamie and the family, or Ted and Mindy, wherever we happen to be sitting, and JR and Helene, wherever we go, right? Once you get done in the foyer, where do you typically move next? Yeah, the kitchen or the living room, right? Kitchen, I'm going to get to that one in a minute. Don't jump ahead of me. Living room next, because in the living room is where you start to know each other, right? You gather around, you begin talking, you start with kind of the shallow sort of stuff, like this is what I do, and how many kids we have, and our dogs' names, and those sorts of things. But as you engage in conversation, relational connections are made. Found out that Paul, how many Iditarods have you been to? 17 Iditarods. I was automatically intrigued. That gave me questions for the whole evening to ask Paul what that's like, because that kind of stuff intrigues me, right? And you know this because you've been in these environments with people where you start to talk and you find things out, and these relational connections are made, and friendships are established. In the living room, you go from being a face and a name to being known. To being known. Now it's not just that I know your name or I recognize your face. Now I know something about you. Now I know a little bit about your story. Because sometimes we all want to go. Sometimes everyone wants to go where somebody knows your. Just soak it in, people. It is my favorite TV show of all time, which I found out my wife was not allowed to watch growing up because it happened in a bar. She grew up in church. That should explain. We all go, oh yeah, understand that one, right? All right, let's move that or I'll be singing the whole song. Sometimes we all want to go where somebody knows our name. It's been said that the most personal thing somebody can ever say to you is to use your name, which is why whenever I'm someplace and I'm being served by somebody and they wear their name tag, I am always calling them by their name. Always. This started in a hospital experience that Sherry and I had with our daughter. Since that point, if you're wearing a name tag, which freaks people out sometimes. Because they're like, they feel like, do I know you? And because I'm a pastor, I can just kind of, well, God told me. No. You're wearing a name tag, right? I figured you're wearing a name tag for a reason. Here's one of the things that is foundational for us at 321. We believe that our lives are impacted, influenced, changed, and formed more by our relationships than anything else. We believe our lives are fashioned and formed and framed and shaped by our relationships more than anything else. If you were to talk to somebody around you today who's been a longtime follower of Jesus, I will guarantee, I'll put money down today, it is easier for them to talk about the 4 or 5 people that have influenced their lives than the 4 or 5 messages that I have given. The 4 and 5 messages that you have heard, the 4 and 5 books that you have read. My life has been shaped and formed by some very significant people in my life. And we believe what really formed and fashioned the lives of Jesus' followers was not Jesus just himself, but the men who spent time with him and spent time with each other. This is really the emphasis behind the whole movie Band of Brothers, is it not, guys who have watched Band of Brothers? That relationally, our lives are impacted and changed by the people we spend time with, which is why high school students, we tell you all the time, your friends determine the direction and quality of your life. Adults, is that not true? Yes, your friendships determine the direction and quality of your life. And you are sitting this morning in a church that was started by a life group. That 10 years ago, a group of guys began meeting together to really do life with me because my life had been broken and shattered. And it wasn't long after that that the wives came along and they started meeting, and here you sit 10 years later in a church that was founded 10 years ago by a group of guys who just got together on Monday night, had beer and wings, and watched Monday Night Football and talked about life. And those guys who are here today have had a huge impact in my life and in who I am. I think one of the things that's a tension point for many of us here who've been around for a long time is we forget the fact that we have grown. Because I think we come in every week, and if you've been here very long, you look for familiar faces, and yet every single week there's people I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I met Josh and Beth, who are hiding back in this corner. Oh, Noah and Haley are here, because you're in your seats. No, I met Josh 2 weeks ago, and it's like, hey, Josh, how are you? Nice to meet you. How long have you been coming? I was expecting, about a month or a year. And my internal voice is going, bad pastor, right? You're supposed to be, and as I started to realize hey, on Sunday mornings, I never get further than that corner. Because you all come back and you talk to me, and that's great, but every Sunday, there are people who walk in and out of our building, and they're a familiar face, and you might know their name, but do you really know them? And my point is this, you really can't get to know somebody on a Sunday morning. I don't think you can get really to know somebody in groups larger than 10. You've got to step into smaller communities. You've got to get into the living room, past the lobby, past the foyer, past Sunday morning, where you can be known. This is why we want you involved in a life group. Because you do life with God, with other people. They speak into your life. You learn in a life group that I am not the only one who's messed up and screwed up. That we all are. And if you're transparent enough, it allows other people to share those things with you. We want you in a life group, and so I want you to hear Brennan's story.
Before I was involved in community, I had a tendency to be pretty isolated. My preference was generally to spend time alone. I'm kind of a loner, still am a bit of a loner, but the more time I spent alone, the more I found out that I became, at least my thoughts and my attitudes became more dark. I became more selfish, more arrogant, egotistical. The world revolved around me because I spent so much time by myself. Once I got involved with a group of other people, it started bringing out different sides to my personality. And the more time I started spending in relationship and in close relationships with other guys, the more I started to see that there are parts of me that need to come out or that are being exposed. My heart started awakening to the fact that I really want to develop more of an intimacy with the Father, as well as an intimacy with close friends, other guys who are on the same path that I am. And once I find that I can get into a group of guys who are walking in the same direction that I am and whose hearts are moving in the same direction that mine is, it really started changing some of those thoughts that were going on in my head. It softened my heart, it softened my attitudes, largely because I was able to let other people speak into my life, and I developed a trust where I could let them point out things that are happening to me or things that I might be doing that just aren't quite right. I've come to really believe that we're meant and designed to be in community. We look at our own God. We're worshiping a Trinity. We're worshiping a God who is in and always has been in a community himself, and we are made in his image. So we, I believe, now should be in a community ourselves. I've grown so much more just being around a group of like-minded and like-hearted guys, being able to confess things to them, pray with them, share with them, that it's just developed this intense desire in me to grow in my intimacy with the Father as I grow in relationship with the other guys that are around me in my group. For anybody who is either not part of a group or doesn't have one right now, find one. It's not necessarily easy. It's not the simplest thing to do in the world, and it doesn't guarantee great relationships right off the bat. The group that I'm in, there's tension. Sometimes it's contentious. Sometimes we argue with each other. We have all developed enough of a relationship that we have trust with each other that when there is something going on, we're able to call each other out, and we're able to speak both grace and truth into each other's lives and bring up issues that need to be dealt with so that we can all grow together. So I can't stress it strongly enough. Life groups, especially when you get involved with people whose hearts are moving in the same direction as yours, can really produce a lot of change for the good in your life and can deepen your relationship with God.
Yeah, so it's really easy to check out a life group. There's a wall right around the corner with all the life groups listed on it. There's a 411, our newsletter, over in the information center you can pick up, lists all the life groups on it. It's on our website. I know it's a big step in. And here's the other thing. You may have to try on several life groups to find one that fits. We understand that. Our leaders do not take that personally because we know that a lot of times those relationships are about chemistry and the right fit. So you may try one out and go, I'm not sure this is a really good fit for me, and then try another life group. But the thing is to get in these smaller communities of people who are moving in the same direction, because we do not create programs at 321. We create steps that all of us relationally can move in the same direction following Jesus together. And guys like Brennan, and these guys have spoken into my lives, that the contentious part is me most of the time in that group. Right? So I just can't encourage you enough. Now, I know that's a big step, and Brennan said it himself, and especially if you're a guy, because for some reason as guys, we've been taught to do everything ourselves, be independent, to strong, we don't need anybody. Absolutely a lie. We need to find a place. So for guys and for girls, maybe sometimes it's tough for you to take that step into a small group. This is one of the reasons we've created smaller communities. It is not the primary purpose behind Healing Hidden Hurts. It is not the primary purpose behind Financial Peace University. Ladies, it's not going to be the primary purpose behind the Beth Moore studies that are getting ready to start here in October. But it is part of the reason why we do these things. I mean, not only do these communities create things like tonight, if you've not been to Healing Hidden Hurts, you need to come back tonight. Not only will it expose something about yourself and how you react and how other people react, but you're going to get to a group of people that maybe are just a face for you on Sunday mornings, but you're going to get to know them a little bit better because you've moved out of the lobby into a living room setting. Same thing with Financial Peace University. Same thing with the Beth Moore studies. We want you to move out of these rows because circles are so much better. Circles are what transform our lives. Rows probably inform our lives. Circles transform our lives. I literally just came up with that. That isn't even in my notes. That was pretty good. All right, so next step. Next step is to get out of Sunday mornings where you feel welcomed into an environment where you are known by people. And this is another big area. Once you've moved past the living room, if you spend enough time in the living room, now you get to go spend time in the kitchen. I say that because for a long time, Sherry was not allowed in the kitchen of my parents' house. My mom felt like it was her responsibility to do everything for everyone. Set the table, make the food, prepare the food, clean up afterwards. And here's Sherry. We had been married for some time, and Sherry had still never been invited into the kitchen. It was just my mom's domain. Some of you ladies can relate to this. And my mom just had this incredible desire to create the experience for everybody else. And I don't know if I remember, you probably do, the first time my mom asked Sherry to come join her in the kitchen. Like, that was a big day. Like, really, up until that moment, even though we were married, Sherry was still a guest in my home. My home, not my home. I don't think so. This is my home. At the moment my mom invited her into the kitchen, Sherry became family. Because now she had to help create the food, serve the food, clean up afterwards. And then the next big step was when my mom asked Sherry to actually bring something for dinner. Then as she went from being asked to help to being asked to contribute, because now you're part of the team. Now it's not so much about making sure you're welcome. Now I feel like I know you. Now I need your help to create the welcoming environment for everybody else, to create the environments where people are known. And so here's your next step. When you go from being welcome and known, you need to hear this morning. You are needed here. You are needed. I know a lot of Sundays you come in and the lights are on and people are at their doors and you think every spot is filled. You're needed. We need your time. We need your investment of life and finances. We need you as part of our team. We need you to consider checking out 321 Kids, or production, or the band, or our First Impressions team needs a lot of help. We need to have spots we have to fill for First Impressions. Our Buildings and Grounds team, our cafe team. Information, there's just spots everywhere where we need people to step up and to take ownership of this thing that we call 321. We need us insiders on Sunday mornings to help create the environments for everybody else to be welcomed, to create these living room experiences where people can be known. You know what else happens when you go to the kitchen? And not only do you serve and do you create these atmospheres and experiences for everybody else, but when you serve alongside people, you create a friendship and a bond with them. I think one of the things that amazes Sherry and I the most when we step into 321 is that there are a good number of people, I'm looking at many of you right here, right now, who are here because you served on one of our student ministries teams. And the great thing about you being here is that it tells us you just didn't show up because you were needed to serve. You showed up because you have a relationship connection with us. When people serve together, relationships are then created. It accomplishes this idea of being known because you are now creating something that you could not do on your own. Take a listen to Taryn's story.
God put the desire to serve on my heart pretty soon after I hit rock bottom about 16 years ago. At that time, I was pregnant, I was not married, and I was in an unhealthy relationship. I was so far away from God, and the father of the baby wanted nothing to do with me and nothing, definitely nothing to do with the baby. About 5 months into my pregnancy, I had complications and I ended up having to go to the hospital. That night I went into labor and ended up delivering a daughter. Unfortunately, she did not survive the delivery. I just remember coming home from the hospital and just laying in bed and just being just so completely down and depressed and hopeless. And I just started crying out to God, like, I just don't understand, why did I go through all of that hurt and rejection and pain? And right when I was crying out to God, I just said, God, I'm done. I just can't do this anymore. This is too hard. I don't see any purpose. I don't see why living another day makes any sense. I felt the most incredible embrace I've ever experienced in my entire life. I can't explain it other than I got a hug from God, and that for sure was my first ever God moment that I ever remember. I definitely knew God was wanting me to get involved with the youth, and not only to try to prevent them from going the wrong way, but also to share the experience that I had with God, that this is our Heavenly Father that loves us so much, and He really does reach out to us. Fast forward 8 years later, my schedule had changed. I took a different job, and so now I had an opening where I could actually volunteer. And at the church I was going to at that time, they said, hey, come take a test drive in any of the ministries that you'd want to try to serve in. And so I already knew I definitely wanted high school. So I decided to go that night, and so did my husband, which was a surprise. I really didn't know he was going to come. I look all around, there's tons of students around in all different areas, so they were playing different kinds of games. And so after about 5 minutes, John starts to get my husband, he starts to get really frustrated, just like this isn't for him. He just knew that he needed to get out of there. And so he said, are you coming with me? And I had a decision to make that night, but I decided to stay. At one point at the very end, we were split up into 2 separate groups. The leader started sharing his testimony, and it was so powerful. And right at the end, he gave an opportunity for anybody else to share their story. And this is the first time I ever felt a nudge from God. God gave me the courage to be able to share, and I just knew when I was done, like, it didn't even matter what anybody thought, that God had just freed me up. It was the most incredible experience I've ever felt. And which is also amazing, that same night was Greg and Sherry's first time test driving at that church as well. And at the end of the night, they met with me and told me their story about Emily and losing Emily, and I know that was God, because that just bonded us together from the first night. And I can't say enough of how much God has used Greg and Sherry to pour into my life. Just to kind of get back to the youth, I just can't say enough of how much the students have impacted my life. Just hearing their stories and being able to be a part of their journey and watch them grow in their faith. And I've been volunteering with high school kids for 9 years now, and it's been absolutely incredible. I still have so many relationships. Even the first class that graduated, one of the girls is now in my ladies' life group. There's another girl that I walk with on a weekly basis. And it's so crazy when you look back and you see how if I wouldn't have decided to go that night, or if I wouldn't have decided to stay, just what I would have missed out of what God was doing in my life. You know, before I used to be so afraid to tell my story and share my testimony because I was so ashamed, and God has taken that and said, hey, give that to me. I don't want you to be ashamed anymore. That's your story, that's us together. And now, when there's an opportunity to share my story, I'm excited because you get to see all what God's doing in my life. And literally, when you say yes to God, there is nothing better in this lifetime. There really isn't. When you can experience God, when you can see what He's doing on a daily basis, when you can share that with other people, it's so incredible.
I wish I could. There's a whole nother message in here on just what we've been able to say. Taryn has impacted so many lives of so many students. And we've been able to watch that over the course of our 8-year relationship with her at Cedar Creek and then here. I'll tell you, I never want to go on a mission trip again and not have Taryn with me because she's on sugar all the time. And it helps balance me out. She is excited. It can be, we were going into Harlem one day to pray with people a couple years ago, and Taryn's like the most, she's never been to Harlem in her life, and I'm going, oh dear God, I knew what we were in for. Taryn was, I wish I could tell you the number of lives, some of them are here this morning, have been impacted because a broken life was a healed life, and is a healing life that's now impacting other lives. And when you serve and give of yourself, I think it's the greatest way that God can give back to you. And so here's what we're asking of you this morning. On your seat when you came in was a first serve form. If you are currently serving, and if you've already turned one of these in before, then just leave it on your seat for the 11 o'clock service. But some of you have been spending an extraordinary amount of time in the living room, which is fine. You've eaten all of the appetizers. You've drank all the food. Drank all the food. I was going to drink all the beer, but I keep hitting that over and over, and you're really going to be bothered by that, so I got to come back. You know what I mean? You've exhausted our resources in the living room. It is time. It is time to step into the kitchen. It is time to relationally connect with a team of people, around a group of people, around a project. It is time to give of your life so that God can give back to you. So there's a pen on your seat. As I'm continuing to talk, you can fill this out, and when you're done, fold it in half, leave it on your seat. Our team will pick it up afterwards. If you've already done this before, just leave it like this and open, and we'll know. But I need you to actually consider, what can I step into? And this is a lot like life groups. Serving in different places. You heard from Taryn say, we all saw it. We knew John back then too. That was John's arena was high school ministry. Funny that he's actually stepped back into high school ministry now. But Taryn, that was where her fit was. It may take you taking a couple tryouts to figure out where you're going to fit. I will tell you right now, I should be nowhere on the other side of that wall. No way, shape, or form should I be involved with any kid under junior high age. That's just freaks. That is not my wheelhouse. I am so grateful for our team of volunteers and leaders over there that do what I'm not able to do. But at the same time, junior high ministry would actually weird them out. I'm like, throw me in there. Throw Drew in there. He's our junior high director. Man, throw us in there for the people that work cafe, for our production team people this morning. It is our responsibility, 321 Insiders, to recreate the environments where people are welcome, where people are known, and where people feel needed. Because sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. Sometimes you want to go where you are known. And sometimes you want to go where you feel like you are needed. So take some time and do that. Here's the other thing I need you to do, and I'm not going to apologize for this. We need you to financially contribute to 321. Listen, if you call 321 home, I hate to say it, but it is time for you to do your part. It is time. Please hear this. Not to maintain what we currently need. 20% of us are providing 80% of what is needed to support our regular budget. 20% of us are providing 80%. That's the average of what it takes to do we don't need you to maintain what we currently need with the lights, with the staff, with the bill. We need you to expand. And by the way, this is not the People Matter campaign. The People Matter campaign is in the process of the South End cap, the parking lot, the new building. This is ongoing everyday ministry. We would love to hire more staff. We would love to expand our ministry possibilities with our student ministries teams, with our children's teams. We'd like to be able to expand what they can do by providing for them financially. It's providing for people in our community that are in financial need. It's figuring out strategic ways to impact Sylvania because we are in Sylvania and we are for Sylvania. Absolutely. To maintain what we currently have, we can do that with what we currently have. But we just believe God's calling us to more. I mean, going to 3 services just shows us this. We need you to contribute. And here's how we've always talked about it at 321. We need you to pick a percent, make a plan, and put it into action. I am not telling you it has to be 10%. I just think it's easier because you take the decimal point, whoop, you do that, and that's what you give. You need to pick a percent. You need to come up with a plan. Truthfully, this is one of the reasons why we have online giving. Because online giving helps you take your percentage plan and put it into action. And then the last thing you need to do is just do it. Go home today. Go on to church321.com and sign up to contribute. Listen, this is this isn't so much a we need issue. This is a trust issue on your part. We could talk about a whole other issue here when it comes to trusting God, when it comes to giving up some of our finances, giving up some of our time. But we're asking you that we need you today on our team to financially contribute if you are an insider regular here at 321. Okay, so here we go. We want Sunday mornings, everybody to feel welcome. Moving out of rows into circles, whether it's life groups or smaller communities like Healing, Hidden Hurts, Financial Peace, we want people to be known. And then we want people to feel needed, that we need you as part of the team here. And here's the great thing that happens when you follow this progression from being welcome and known and needed. The great thing that happens in your life is you are changed. You know why? Because you've come into relationships with people who are starting to rub off on you, who are starting to do life with God with you. And you're finding your life is gradually being changed as you make yourself into part of this community, as you step out in these environments where you're known and where you are finally used, where you're used on a weekly basis. Your life gets changed. And we saw this back in June. This is probably one of the highlights for me of our first 4 years here was this. Now, we've baptized more than that, but to us, to watch this happen in June and watch person after person after person take the next step in following Jesus, that was huge for us. I mean, we came away from that night, I was looking at our leadership team, we were all going, I don't know if we can top that. Like that was just incredible to see people who showed up here on a Sunday morning like you. They checked things out. Many of them got involved in smaller groups. And then they realized, I need to take the next step in following Jesus by being baptized. This is my good friend John Lewick, whose wife just passed away this past spring, to watch John be baptized. His daughter was baptized. My friend Kenny Rowe was baptized. I could watch that. I may put that on my phone and just watch it over and over. Because what happens when people are welcome, what happens when they're known, what happens when they're needed is their lives are changed. And we have been able to watch this. Don't hide behind Eric here. We've been able to watch this happen in Marissa's life. Take a look.
Growing up, we went to a very traditional church. It was where my mom went, my family went. We sat in the second to last pew on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side of the pew every week. It was always my uncle, my aunt, and then filtered in that way. It was probably around 6th or 7th grade when I started to get more into travel soccer. It was, my mom was a single mom, so she was raising me on her own. In 8th grade, my grandma and grandpa on my mother's side had both passed away, and my mom's kind of last memory of both of them was at that church, so it was kind of hard to go back there for her. I hadn't been regularly going for about 2 years, and then at the end of my 8th grade year, we started to look more into moving away, and at the end of my freshman year, we moved up to Toledo and started my sophomore year up here. And so church was completely out of the picture by then. Like, I hadn't gone for 2 years. I was moving into a new city, and I was more concerned about the fact that I was about to start a huge high school with only knowing who my guidance counselor was. The first couple of years, it was always like, I believed, but it was like I didn't know what I could get out of it. I just thought like, oh, to get anything out of it, you had to go on Sunday mornings. I had friends who would go to church and always would invite me, but I just kind of shied away from it. I felt like, oh, I haven't been in 4 years. I can't really like go back. My senior year, I started dating Matthew and got invited to go watch him play a Christmas Eve service. I remember asking him, and I was like, what do I wear? Like, because I remember always dressing up. Like, you never wore jeans to church. Never. It was like never a thought in my mind. And he was like, oh, jeans and a nice shirt. And I was like, okay, that's a thing. I started watching online because I was also living on campus, didn't have a car, and I was like, well, like, I have this resource at my fingertips, why not utilize it? I started coming regularly pretty much after Easter. It was probably like, I want to say my third or fourth time coming in, and after hearing, if you go to the left as you exit, we have all of these free Bibles to give away, like make sure to like pick them up, we've given this many away. I had asked my mom, do you have a Bible that I could use? And she gave me this one, and it was ancient. I can't use this. It was also very like paper thin, like very Bible page, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna rip this. I remember like coming in, and I remember just standing in front of the wall, and I'm like, okay, I know these are free, and I was just standing there for like 2 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I can grab it. Like, it's okay to like reach out and grab it, and I was like, is some like sensor gonna go off? Is someone be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you picked it up, like, congratulations. And I was like, okay. And I was like, I just gotta grab it. Just have to grab it. And I like picked it up, and I just like kind of looked around, and I was like, okay. I was like, I've done it. Like, I've gotten over that like threshold. I was at work one day, and this guy, I'm a cashier, and I was like checking him out, and he kind of turned to me and was like, Marissa, do you like believe that you're gonna go to heaven one day? And I was caught off guard like completely, and I was like, what? Like, how did we get here? Like, I don't even know you. You only know my name because of my name tag. I'm surprised you pronounced it right. And he's like, I was like, yeah, like, I think so. And he's like, no, like, I'm serious. Like, do you think you're going to like go to heaven one day? And I was like, you know, like, I've changed a lot, like, in the past 6 months compared to the like past 4 years. I don't want to be 27 and be just now like finding out what this is and how amazing it is when I'm already going and like kind of already have my toes dipped in the water. And I was like, well, maybe like I can start reading the Bible and getting more out of it. Like, you know, I've had it for the past 4 months now, and I've not done anything with it, but I did not use it as a coaster. It sat nicely on my bookshelf. And I started reading it front to back. And I remember I was with Matt one day, and he goes, are you reading that front to back? And I was like, yeah, like, and he's like, no, you can't do this. And I was like, well, why not? And it like, I forget what passage he turned to, and he's like, just read this, like, you need to read it. And I'm like, I was just like looking, and I'm like, this is so bad. And I was like, I'm gonna spoil everything, like, I can't skip ahead, like, and I remember reading it, and I was like, I get it. The first time I did something that was beyond a Sunday was, there was a spring cleaning day. I remember I was like, okay, like, you know, I don't have anything going on, like, I can go out and do this. And I remember getting here, and I was one of the first people here because I like being early to things when I remember what time they are. And I remember that was like the first time that I like met Josh and got to talk to him and like realized like how funny he was. And I talked to a couple other people and just realized like these people are going outside of just Sunday morning. Like, why can't I? Like, it's just one day. Ever since coming here, it's been a lot of loose ends have been tied together, and it's been a lot of, you know, like, I can reach out and I can get an answer. It might not be in the way that I want it or the way that I thought I needed it, but there's always gonna be some certain way that I'm gonna get something out of it. And I know that it goes beyond just prayer time on Sunday morning. Like, I know that he'll be there 24/7, that this is something that isn't for now, it's for life, and that I can get a whole lot out of it.
Spoiler alert, he raises from the dead at the end. Just hate to ruin that for you there, but Elsa's sitting there going, remember, the Bible is not a book, it is a collection. So it was just so funny to sit. She's embarrassed. She'll never come back to 321. We have other churches we can recommend for you this morning. That's just so great. I think it's good for us to hear Marissa. Many of us have forgotten what it's like to be a first-timer back inside this environment. And so to be freaked out in front of the Bibles, we would never think about that. But the average person outside of there doesn't have an idea of what goes on here. Or if they do, it's based on their ideas of what happened when they were little, when they were younger, which is why people haven't ventured back inside the church. So where does the confusion come for a lot of people? The confusion comes when we have wrong expectations for the room we're living in. The wrong expectation is I come in on Sunday morning, and please hear this. I'm going to step on toes here. I know there's a lot of Christians who will sometimes say, I need more on Sunday mornings. I need more. I'd like to go deeper. I'd like to. And I am not offended when I hear that. I really am not. You just have the wrong expectation. If we were to go deeper on Sunday mornings, I'd be over the heads of most of the people who are trying to figure this thing out for the first time. If I presuppose that everybody knew exactly who Luke was, he was a non-Jewish, Gentile doctor, follower of Jesus, I just assumed that. It would not make sense for people who are picking up the Bible for the first time and thinking they have to start in Genesis to make it all the way through. Right? It's just an understanding. And here's the great thing, just for you Christians who need more. The great thing about the world in which we live in today is there are podcasts and books and online messages by people far smarter than me. We need to learn how to feed ourselves. So here, please hear this. Mature followers of Jesus that are here this morning, I don't need you coming in today to be a consumer. I need you to come in to be a contributor. Your job is not, I am thrilled that you pick and glean from the service. I do that whenever I go to churches too. But I understand when I'm going someplace else, I'm about the mission of the church when I come in this morning. And the mission of the church is I need to be used today to create that front door experiences for people like Marissa that are wondering, what do I wear and where do I sit and all those sorts of things. We need you on the team to help recreate this. And then we're creating environments. I was with somebody last night, Sean, talking about how Healing Hurts brought them to tears last night. Their first time venturing out of the rows into something smaller was Healing Hidden Hurts last week. And we talked to them last night. That's where we'll create these atmospheres. We're creating the Beth Moore study for us. But just when you have wrong expectations, doesn't that not hurt your relationships with people when you have wrong expectations of them? When you have wrong expectations for your football team, does that not? So I want to make sure we are all clear this morning of understanding on Sunday mornings, the goal is that everybody feels welcome. They know what we're talking about. We're removing any roadblocks or hindrances or anything, obstacles that would keep them from hearing about who Jesus is. But after you've been here for a while, after you sat in the rows, we really want you to be known. We want you to get out of these and get into relationships with people who are moving in the direction of Jesus and failing at it and succeeding at it just like you are. But they're kind of traveling with you today. For those who are running the race for the cure this morning, they are pacing with you. Some are ahead of you, some are behind you. We need you in relationships because we believe relationships transform, shape, and frame our lives more than anything else. And then you need to hear that we need you. We need you. We need you on all the teams around here. I'm going to talk to Christy because our First Impressions team is not complete yet. We'd like to create a host team that's in here. Thank the Lord. Some of our guys come in and they find empty seats, but we don't have a regular host team of people whose job it is on Sunday mornings to be in here in the auditorium greeting everybody that's sitting in this section. And this section, as people are coming in, they're looking for empty seats. We just don't have those people yet. I've told Christy, cover the doors first. And then we'll get to everything else. We're short there. Josh, I know, needs help. I know you could use help in junior high ministry. We need you to step out and try some things out, not just so you can get involved with your service, but so you can connect with another community of people who are serving together. And I will guarantee this, absolutely guarantee this. If you follow this process through, your life will be changed. Your life will be changed. And if you don't believe me, for those of you who've been at 321 for a while and have seen your life changed, just raise your hand. Just talk to anybody whose hand is up right now. And we'll talk to you about how God has changed our lives if we have followed him in being welcomed, known, needed, and changed. Okay? I was going to say, the title of the message is WKNC, which I was actually going to come up with a whole, WKNC in Sylvania. Kind of. Anybody remember WKRP in Cincinnati? Thanks. 4 of us do. That's great. That's today's big idea. Welcome, known, needed, and changed. Welcome, known, needed, and changed. The big idea. Okay? So a couple challenges you finish up. Check out a life group. Come back tonight for Healing Hidden Hurt. Sherry's going to give you an announcement in a second. Financial Peace University. Beth Moore, step out of the rows, get into a circle. Pick up this first serve form. At the end of the service today, take some time, take some courage, fill it out, fold it over, leave it on your seat. We'll pick it up. Just kind of figure out this morning, what room are you in? And what's your next environment that you need to step into? And then have the courage to take that step. Get it? Good. Let's pray. Father, thank you that really what we know as the Christian life is really a relational life with you. When I look back, Jesus, at your invitation to your followers, it was pretty simple. Everyone is welcome. Come unto me, you said. Follow me. That invitation was open to everyone, regardless of their gender, regardless of their class, regardless of their nationality. Your invitation, Jesus, for people to follow you was offered to everyone. And then as people came and followed you, especially your disciples, they got to know you, and you knew them. And then their lives were changed not just by spending time with you, but boy, James's life was changed by spending time with Peter, and Peter impacted John's life, and John impacted Thaddeus' life. And boy, I'm thankful for those relationships because Jesus, when you left, it was those relationships that started this thing called the church. So this morning, for each of us as individuals, we have a choice to make, to be content with where we are or to take a step forward. As we move to 3 services, we need to ask ourselves if what I can do to help create the front door experience for all the new people that will be coming, trying to figure out where they get a Bible and where they dress and what all this, and to help create environments. Maybe for some of us this morning, it's just being in here and meeting people that we've not met before so that they're known, not just a number, not just a face. And then, Father, that you would just do what you do. You would change our lives, that every step we take towards Jesus, you're making us more like Jesus. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, a couple of announcements before we go. Next Sunday, 3 services, 8:30, 10 a.m., and 11:30. Excited for that. We also begin a brand new series called Who Needs God? We invite you to bring friends. It's a whole new feel starting next week. Tonight, Healing Hidden Hurts. It's our second week. Even if you missed last Sunday, come tonight, 6 o'clock. We have childcare provided. Don't let kids hinder you from not coming. We are taking care of that for you in our kids area. Wednesday night, Financial Peace. We had our first one this past Wednesday. If you missed the first, come this week. We have childcare provided for you. No kids came. We had a lot of young families. I don't know what you did with your kids, but we had workers here, and not a single child showed up. So we have child care provided for you if you are willing to do that. Sylvania Area Family Services Dinner is October 5th. It's on a Thursday evening. It is an opportunity for all of us to provide, cook, serve, and eat with, and impact, and get to know the people in Sylvania. If you signed up back in May when we were supposed to do this, that list is gone. We need food bringers and just lots of things. There's a list out on the welcome area. Please go sign up to help make that happen. And then also and this is for everybody. I know Beth Moore, she's a teacher that does video teaching with Bible study. We're going to offer 2 opportunities starting October 5th. It will be for 6 Thursday mornings at 9:30 right here, and then the following Saturday, October 14th at 9 a.m. So those 2 opportunities to take her study called The Quest. You'll have to buy your own book, but we do have information at the welcome area if you'd like to sign up for that or talk to me. We're excited. It's men and women, although she does tend to, I think it'll be great. Okay, so why am I carrying toilet paper? I learned a lot this week. Last Sunday, the women's rooms are right here. The men's restrooms are right behind there. And how this system works is what goes from there comes to here, right in front of Chris's thing, and it flows out. And last Sunday, following the morning services, there was no flow happening. We were backed up from the ladies. And what we discovered when our drain person came on Thursday is a lot of things go down that shouldn't go down except what comes out naturally and our toilet paper. That's it. That's it. So if you have a package that says flushable, it ain't flushable here. You may flush it at home. It cannot be flushed here. This guy, I'm not kidding you, I learned a lot on Thursday. There's a drain right down there. He was this close to getting a jackhammer and tearing up our floor to clean out our pipes. But what about, if it isn't this, it can't go down? But what about this? If it isn't this, it can't go down. Anywhere in this building, it cannot go down. Now, I know some of you are sitting here going, man, I'm here for the first time, and did the pastor's wife really talk about personal ladies things, and she really holding toilet paper? And all I can say to that is, welcome to Church 321. Welcome. We are so glad that you are here with us today. And if you have the courage after this wonderful announcement, would you please, we'd love to meet you. We really would. And if you have any more questions about this, I will gladly tell you. Because the only thing that can go down is toilet paper. Okay, but if you are with us for the first time, when you step out and head to the left is our welcome area. It's been rearranged. We have a table that is for information, and then we have 3 round tables for our guests. We would love to meet you. A great opportunity for you to fill out a card and to meet someone, and we will gladly give you a mug that we actually put a little bit treat in for you today as well. There you go. Let's be a place where everyone is welcomed, where we are known, where we are needed, and where your life can be impacted and changed. Have a great day, and only use toilet paper.